Alright, day 10 of Workshop Wasteland's Tricks or Treats, and today I have a little bit of a treat for you, I guess you could say. So, cutting threads on a lathe is pretty easy when you want a single point thread cut, right? There's not a whole lot of setup there, but messing with change gears on a lathe like I have is kind of a nuisance. It's not that it's hard, it's not difficult, there's a chart to show you what gears to swap, but it's pretty time consuming to change that a bunch if you're doing a lot of different threads. So of course we have a better way, right? We can use dies, which is great. I have a really nice set of metric and standard die tap and die sets from Blue Point, but they only have really the common stuff: 632, 832, quarter 20, quarter 28. You know, like a pretty common standard die. But on this little engine that I'm building, there's a lot of oddball things like a 540, stuff like that. So I decided what I was going to do is buy one of these Tailstock die holders. So this is a mandrel that slides into the actual die holder. And then of course this is MT2 taper for my lathe. Your lathe may have a different taper in the tailstock. And this is actually pretty darn well made. It costs like, I think $39 on eBay, and I think it was even free shipping. So for 40 bucks, you're kind of hard pressed to make this. Then this thing comes with two adapters for the dies. So everything's sounding great so far. This is going to work perfectly, but this is the smallest of the adapters that it comes with. Again, it comes with two. And this is my 540 die, number 540. So whenever I set that in there, as you can see, it is nowhere near fitting, and obviously that's a problem. You have to hold the die in the center, as well as be able to keep it from rotating. So this is just an import special off of Amazon. It's pretty cheap, but it actually cuts really nice threads. If you've seen any time in my previous video that I was using one of these, I was using a pair of pliers or doing some kind of other buffoonery to hold this thing. It worked. I got a thread cut, but it was less than ideal, right? So this holder itself has a smaller hole in the end of it, but again, it's still significantly too big. So while this is nothing revolutionary, but I made a little mandrel with a set screw. So I hope that comes out on camera. You can see it has a single set screw. My little die fits beautifully in here, just like so. Pretty nice tight fit, tight enough to hold a die, that's for sure. Then I run my little set screw in here. Got to get the dimple lined up on the die first. There we go. Run my little set screw in there, and then this has 3 positions for set screws around it, and I put a dimple in this that I made. So I line that up with that set screw, and then again tighten up one of these set screws. Sorry, that's a lot of set screws. And now there we go. This is a pretty quick, pretty basic solution to a problem that I actually had, and it was irritating. So let's walk back here to the lathe and see how it works in practice. I think it works pretty darn good. Works as you would expect. Cuts a really nice thread, and all was well for 30 bucks and a small piece of metal. I'd also like to point out a lot of these MT2 tapers that you get don't have a tang on the end of them. Let me show you what I mean by that tang. So this is what I mean by the tang. You can see this flat square portion at the end, and that's like the ejector pin, so that whenever you put it in here, it will pop this out of the taper. And that's really important. Otherwise, you can't get it out. You have to take the spindle all the way out of the tailstock. So there was a hole machined in here in the center, and I Loctite 648 a piece of aluminum in there that's long enough so that I can eject it out of my tailstock. So that works pretty good as well. Again, really basic problem, really great solution. Can machine a different size adapter for any of these little import taps that you get, or I'm sorry, import dies that you get. And it's not necessarily a one size fits all, but if you had another die that was the same size, of course, you could put it in there and it would work. So let's make a thread and show you how good this works. So as you can see, it's in my tailstock, and like I said, that little ejector pin works to eject it back out. which is perfect. You don't really need to like slam this in there anyways. It doesn't necessarily have to be tight because this has its own kind of mandrel, if you want to call it that, to slide on. Got the die in there. This is just a piece of 1/8 inch 12L14 lined up right with the die. And as you can see, all you have to do is turn it in there, back it off, keep going like this. And just like that. I'm not going to go any further. I don't want to waste the stock simply because I don't need this thread on anything right now. But as you can see, that cut a really nice thread, no oil involved, and just like that, we have what we need. I used that same setup to cut this thread on a homemade bolt. This is again 12L14. It was a piece of hex, so it looks like the head of a bolt. Turn it down to an 1/8 inch and thread it. This is threaded 540, and that's a really expensive bolt to buy because you have to buy a bunch online typically, and shipping is outrageous on small hardware from places like McMaster-Carr and other places. So again, why buy it when you can make it? But there you go. Real basic operation, nothing to it. I know that's probably pretty crude and pretty rudimentary to most machinists, but I'm a hobbyist. I'm not a machinist. I thought I would pass this along because it may help somebody else. So thanks for tuning in. Hope you found this useful. Look forward to seeing you in the next video.